Okay, welcome back, people. So we are going to go through the Last of Us episode 2 and 3 to compare. So as usual, I'm just going to show you clips from the video game. I'm not going to show you any clips from the TV series itself, and then I'm going to just narrate through what are the differences from the game and compare to the TV series and whether I felt it was good or bad. So as for the pros and cons, I would say the comparison part, this is a personal opinion. So if you feel that you have a better opinion of it, you feel differently about it, I totally understand, I totally get you. As long as you enjoyed it in your own way, I guess that's a good thing. But the way I see it, I may like something, but I may still be critical about it. So I may point that out, but otherwise just understand that I'm just looking at whether it's good or bad and nothing personal to anyone or anything. Yeah, even to myself, I would say, because there are things that I like that I know are not very good, not very entertaining per se, like big robots clashing or stuff like that. But at the same time, there are things that I feel it's important to be critical about to know whether the film or story itself is good in score, the writing is good, the screenplay is good, and stuff like that. So, for those of you who are new to the channel, welcome. This is the second video I'm making about The Last of Us. I skipped a single review for episode 2. I thought of combining 2 and 3 together because the first one was actually quite long. The debut episode was quite long, but episode 2 and 3 are a little bit shorter, I think less than an hour each. So it's something we should be able to go through like a film review, although because of the breakdown, it's going to take a little bit longer to skip through things. So without further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and skip through the video that I have here. So at the end of episode 1, Joel, Tess, and Ellie have made it, in fact, to basically the outside of the camp they were in, and they are now exploring through their old smuggling routes, and they're trying to get Ellie to where she's supposed to go, which is basically to the a post, a firefly post that is not too far from where they start, and they have to venture through that, so they actually, make their the journey and what's not. So here's the thing. In general, as for the actors and the characters, I still feel that I don't see Pedro Pascal as Joel, and I don't see Bella Ramsey as Ellie. That's all I'm gonna say. But as for whether they are both good actors in their own right, I think yeah, why not? Both of them are pretty good. I think they would act well in almost anything they're thrown into, but it just doesn't feel suitable, which is why I previously pitched that Jensen Ackles would still have been a better choice. But they wanted a softer Joel, and they got it. Pedro Pascal is in fact a slightly softer Joel. He, despite being equally or more or less silent compared to the previous Joel, he's just sort of always there in the background, looming, lurking kind of thing. And Tess is always the one that makes most of the, not to say decisions, but calls the shots, I would say. And she leads the team. Joel's always at the back. And it's a little bit different from the video game where you do clearly see that you are leading the path as Joel, and Tess is behind you. She's keeping an eye on Ellie, while you're the first to explore and check on things. In this one, there are some differences in that sense. Also, there was these jump scares and whatever that was in the video game, and those same jump scares are actually not in the TV series. The TV series instead has this one moment where they are exploring like some kind of a building very early on where they're scavenging and looking for a way to bypass the main path, where the the infected are actually somewhere lurking along the street, so they can't take it, and they instead have to take a shortcut, so they have to sneak through this building to get find their way to the other side. And inside the building, they instead encounter some clickers. Now, a lot of these moments where the clickers appear are absolutely superb. I have to say that whoever the actor was that was playing the clicker, my God, that was so freaking realistic. The way the body pops like a hip hop popper sort of thing, and the clickers sort of twitch and turn as they try to look out for sound waves to detect their enemies or their prey per se. I think it was so well done. So as for the stealthing, it's not as immersive as the video game because I feel that the video game just had more space within the area. They were actually able to traverse quite a bit. There's a lot of walking involved, and yes, it may feel like it's a boring thing, but with the constant tension of the lurking clickers in the area, it usually doesn't feel so, how do you call this, boring per se. In this one, the clickers show up. Joel ends up fighting and taking off some of the clickers. It turns out to be a lot more difficult of a task compared to in the video game. In the video game, you have a technique of killing the clickers, but in this one, it seems like the clickers are just kind of overpowering. And they do show the scene where Ellie lets the clicker bite her to protect Joel. And so she gets bitten the second time, which allows Joel and Tess to confirm that she cannot be infected once and for all. And Tess actually does get bitten. They don't show it, it happens off screen, as does in the game, and then later on she reveals that she's actually bitten. Now, Fedra does not show up in this building, and this may be a little bit of a weird creative choice. Like, I understand that in the video game it didn't make too much sense for Fedra to show up in this area, but it just gave the tension that they're never really safe. You have soldiers and you have infected both lurking in the same area, and we didn't get to experience that tension. So in the TV series, it's more like you have some infected, which they defeat. I think it's like two clickers, and that's it. They defeat two clickers. There's no soldiers. There's nothing else that shows up along the way. They also changed some of the lore, which is the infected no longer have spores that can make you infected. Instead, they have to bite you, and physical contact is the only way. However, the infect instead have another unique mechanism, which is they actually have like this network of something like Stranger Things, sort of network of fungus that grow in the ground. And if you accidentally trigger one of the infected that is connected to the network, you trigger the horde, and the horde will come after you. So how they introduce the horde is long after Tess is bitten, and they try to get to, yeah, like these scenes, this dark, very creepy, eerie scenes. You don't get this in the TV series because it's not dark. They're not using their flashlights. To scout around. There's only one scene where Joel is like trying to reload his weapon, which is kind of game-esque, where he's like hiding in the corner reloading his weapon, and he turns the flashlight to one of the clickers, and the clicker doesn't even, it doesn't detect light, right? So it just stays there twitching, trying to listen to Joel, and so you don't have the tension of the horror game that it's what it's this whole sequence is all trying to show you is that your life is under threat. You have to do a lot of sneaking around because you can't take on all of these clickers at once. But you don't actually have that tension in the TV series. Also, they do eventually get past all of that, and they don't have these battles with these random infected and what's not. It's just two clickers. That's basically it in the whole episode. So this whole part is sort of skipped off. Of course, you don't have note reading like we do here, and these constant jump scares that showed up in the game are not in the TV series. So I don't know, it feels like the TV series is just very relaxing, sort of like a family drama, where yes, you do have moments when creatures can show up, but it is always going to be a very far off thing from jump scares or something being really creepy or scary or terrifying. You don't have any of that. Now, as for the battles that you can see here that is taking place, none of this is in the TV series. You don't have any of these fights. It's pretty much very straightforward, very relaxing. They have this exact scene of Ellie crossing from building to building shortly after they escape their encounters in the later part of episode 2. And yeah, this is taken literally from the video game, so it's very nice to see this scene. And then she says, "You can't deny that view." These are the exact dialogues pretty much at this moment. So they proceed until they reach what they believe is the base, I would say. And inside this area, Tess is reveals that she's actually bitten, she's infected, and then she points at Ellie and she says, "This is real. Look at her. She's actually immune. You have to help her, get her across. This is bigger than both of us." And so Tess tells him to leave her behind. And I like the way Tess goes down in the TV series. She actually drops a bunch of oil canisters, which are just casually located at the entrance of this building, which is where the Fireflies made somewhat of a base. And she just drops all of the oil canisters down and then lights it up, and the whole building just explodes as Ali and Joel make it out of there. And then as they continue to venture through this area, there's no encounter here again with Fedra. I think this one does make a little bit of sense. I would say I'm not sure why Fedra would have come up to this point unless I can't remember if in the video game they just are there by pure coincidence. They're tracking the Fireflies and they just show up there. shortly after the infected gets the fireflies. I don't know if that's the what it was in the game. I can't really recall that. But in the TV series, they don't show up. So once again, you don't have this battle, you don't have this encounter, you don't have this whole action sequence or whatever it may be, the sneaking and whatever. You don't have any of that. And again, you don't have the masks, you don't have the spores. So you don't have Joel asking Ellie, "How are you breathing in this stuff?" And yeah, this whole dialogue also doesn't really have any affirmation. Doesn't really help you because in the video game and the TV series, you already know that she's immune, right? So breathing in or not breathing it in shouldn't make a difference. So aside from that, you don't have this amazing sequence to the fog and the trains and how they get across this abandoned subway station, this underground collapsed subway station, go through the waters and try to get to the other side. The fact that Ellie can't swim is just mentioned in the TV series. They don't really show it being put into any puzzles or any effects. They didn't really show how Joel and Ellie try to make their way through certain areas and traverse through certain areas. And I think that's actually important for relationship building, like just walking with someone for a few days, compared to doing challenges with someone for a few days. It's really very, very different. Let me tell you that. Like just a simple example is right. I could have made friends with someone who was just in my classroom, like sitting next to me and just chit-chatting every other day. We could become friends. But if I were to go for, let's say, camps with them, activities with them, do more things with them that are more exciting than just walking, for example, they would definitely become better friends with me. Heck, we would be best friends for life if we go through a difficult challenge. And that's where the dynamic's supposed to build in this relationship because Joel and Ellie are solving, their way through this apocalypse, which is what the idea of The Last of Us is supposed to be. They solve their way through all of these things. They bond together. Ellie earns Joel's trust. Ellie seeks approval from Joel. Joel sort of becomes her father figure, and she sort of becomes his daughter figure. And that dynamic, you don't really see it in the second episode, at least, of the TV series. I don't think you even see it in the third episode, to be fair. So this is where they're just walking down this beaten up path and they're trying to look for a way to go around this this area. And what they're looking for is Bill's place. So they do not have any of these rooftop climbing, getting down. They don't have any of these sequences at all. It's just they're just walking down a street. That's literally what it is in the TV series. So I don't know how I felt about it. Like all these like narrow townscape, the overgrown what do you call this, a wildlife, I would say. Mostly flora, of course, not much fauna, but the scape of the area itself is what's appealing in the video game. Always makes you feel like it's cozy, but at the same time it's dangerous. It sort of gives you the feeling that you are always pressured to check and look around and see if you can scavenge things as well as keep an eye out for possible infected in the area. You don't really feel that kind of thing build up in the TV series. You don't really have this. So this is already through episode 3, at least the starting parts of episode 3. You do see Ellie actually finding this particular arcade console, I would say, and she's just talking through with Joel, saying that she, punch a hole through your stomach before kicking your head. I think in the TV series she says something like, she will swallow you whole. She has sharp teeth and she'll swallow you whole, or something like that. So yeah, they're talking about just video game characters, and then they continue the adventure. So in the video game, once again, they're going through this township, narrow buildings, landscape, beautiful, gorgeous landscape, diners, things they pass through, and in the TV series, it's just walking down a street. So again, if you ask me where the building was, if they're walking down the street, it's just a building along the side, like one of the paths that they take. It's like beside a gas station or something. Oh no, no, it's not beside a gas station. It's just a standalone building. It's like a diner, like a random diner that's just there. And that's where Joel has his stash. So yeah, it's very weird in the sense where they have so much detail in the video game that they don't have in the TV series. And I understand maybe designing all of these detail in the TV series may be difficult, but it shows a lack of budget, a lack of commitment, and the inability to keep up with the source material because it's just too difficult. To me, it looks like the TV series just found it too difficult to become the game, and so they're deciding to sort of divert it, make it more like a drama per se, and that's what it turned out to be. So you don't have this whole beautiful sequence of Joel and Ellie exploring the township. Like these are the best parts of The Last of Us: the world building, the lore, the exploration. You don't have this. So just look at this whole sequence, right? Yes, you are playing it. Yes, there's a lot of ladders and stuff like that. But even if you don't have that much puzzle solving, at least having like 20% of it, of Ellie and Joel figuring out how to get over across a place, just putting a ladder, even without verbally telling each other, hey, I need help. I think just understanding that they both would help each other out in those situations shows you that they're starting to build a dynamic where, initially maybe they have to call each other out to be more verbal, but later on they just don't need to. They already understand each other. And that shows you um, a passive building of dynamic, the show don't tell idea of a dynamic, where as time goes on, you don't really have to call out someone, hey, can you give me a hand? Hey, can you give me a lift? They sort of know, right? They also don't have this random encounter with the infected in this kind of building because they don't go there. It's not in the TV series either. And then eventually, I think they make it to somewhere near Bill's place where there are some traps in this area. Wait, where's the traps? Somewhere, somewhere here. Yeah. So in the video game, Joel and Ellie actually have to figure their way through or past these traps to try to get to where Bill's place is. But in the TV series, they don't show any of that. They don't show the challenge of trying to defeat Bill's traps because Bill is so well bunkered up and fortified, and they're unable to communicate with him from outside the fence. So they don't have that sort of challenge for them to get across either. So again, another challenge is dropped, another sequence is dropped, and the part where Joel actually gets caught by this trap, and Ellie has to
That
go and
bridge
find a
looks like
way to
it's a
break the
counterweight.
counterweight, right? So they don't have this sequence because this is I would say one of the best sequences in the video game super early on because it builds the tension of the fact that either Joel or Ellie could be in trouble here, like seriously, because the one guy who knows how to use guns really well is hanging upside down, unable to help, and then Ellie has to go and help him, and he's trying to shoot them while being upside down. And I tell you, it's one of the coolest sequences that you could throw into a game this early on because it really builds the tension. It really tells you that we are throwing you a challenge, we want to test you. So you don't have this amazing sequence where he's fighting off infected upside down while Ellie is trying to figure out a way to bring down the counterweight, and then finally Bill shows up to help Joel. So in the TV series, Bill is already dead. Yes, spoilers, of course, as usual. Bill is already dead. They instead throw you a gay story of him and his gay boyfriend living in a post-apocalyptic kind of township, which Bill has built. And for some reason, everything in the town is just perfect. It's like it's not like it's in an apocalypse, and Bill is able to all of a sudden maintain an entire town by himself. Now, I get it. Over the years, it might be doable, but eventually things can get overwhelming for a person who's just going to a store to look for parts. It's not so simple. There's a lot of things that you still need to look out for. You don't have, like, gasoline alone can't last you 10 years. It's not a thing. There's no way you can just have enough fuel in a petrol station to last you 10 years to power up your house or whatever. Like, even if you learn how to use it sparingly, considering he has all those traps and electric wires running at the same time, it's kind of strange. So, in this, however, you can see that in the video game, however, you can see that he doesn't have such a huge fence and he's not running electricity throughout an entire area, right? It's a bit more logical. He just has a few traps here and there, pretty much all offline traps. They don't run on electricity, they run on like strings, wires, counter or like weights and stuff like that. So it makes a lot more sense. So Bill Joe doesn't have to come here and rescue Joel and Ellie to help them go to his place. They don't have this whole sequence. Ellie and Bill do not meet in the TV series. Um, they don't have any of that. They don't have the sequence where they all talk and plan and decide how to help each other. So whatever supplies you need, I suggest you grab them. He tells them that there is a way to get what you want, but you have to do something for me as usual. This is a simple trope in a lot of apocalypse games. They don't really have it in the TV series. And also, they don't really have the sequence where they travel together, where they walk around and explore. None of this is there. So let me tell you what really happens in the TV series after going through this entire sequence, because none of this is existing in the TV series, right? None of this happens all the way until, let's see, they go through, explore through here. They go under here. I need a gun. She says she does ask for a gun in the TV series a few times, but always brushed off by Joel. Nothing unexpected there. They don't have this conversation where he's like asking him, "What are you doing? Why are you with this girl? You know, what happened to Tess?" All of these things are not in the TV series again. You learn how to craft a bunch of new weapons, so it could have been cool to show Joel actually crafting something in the TV series. They don't have that. They don't have any crafting whatsoever. And also in the TV series, they actually show a wall full of wall-mounted guns that belong to Bill. And in the video game, you wouldn't have sitting down, you'd have picked up the best guns that you can think of. And as you can see, Joel is having a rifle on his shoulder. But in the TV series, instead, Joel stashes away his last rifle, saying he doesn't have ammunition for it, so it's pretty much useless, and just goes around with a pistol. Which doesn't really make sense in a zombie apocalypse. Like, I get it, it might slow you down, it might weigh you down, but every bullet is going to matter in a zombie apocalypse if you are really going to kill the things that come at you. So unless they say something like a crowbar is better for me, I'm faster, I don't need ammunition, or something like that, but he didn't give any of those reasons. So they don't have this sequence again where they go and encounter some infected in an area in this kind of maze-like garden area. They don't have that. Uh, all that expected. I would say the TV series is greatly watered down. It's a very discounted version of what the video game is, which is hilarious because it looks like the video game is just straight up better. There's no way to even compare it. It's not even close. Like, I would say you rather watch gameplay or cutscenes from the video game and still enjoy it a lot better than the TV series, which I think it's not worth watching at this point. At least until I watch another two more episodes, I can't really tell you if I would recommend it. But so far from what I've experienced, that's what's happening. So let me tell you what happens in the TV series in comparison. The TV series instead shows you Joel and Ellie making their way to Bill's place, and then they cut into a flashback sequence of Bill living with his gay boyfriend, who is, wait, let's see if they can get his name. Episode 3, Long Long Time. This guy, Frank, right. So in the TV series, sorry, in the video game, you only see Frank ever in a note, where Frank tells Bill that he's fed up of Bill's antics. Uh, he's not happy living with Bill in that little house in a little made up neighborhood, and he actually wants to go beyond the fence. He wants to explore, and he does die. So he writes a note to say that I should have listened to you, Bill, in the sense where you're right. We do not live if we go beyond the fence because infected are here. However, I'm still sick and tired of living with you. Something like that. There's actually a note. I don't know if you can find it here. But there's a note where he says, I'm actually sick and tired of living with you. I don't want to be with you anymore, Frank, and so I'm actually leaving you because you don't agree with me to leave this area. You just want to stay back in your own town. And that pretty much turns out to be the story in the video game. But in the TV series, it's too perfect. Bill and Frank have an amazing, perfect relationship. They live for like what 10 years through an apocalypse without any issues. Actually, more than 10 years because Bill lives most of it, and then Frank joins and they live another 10 years perfectly in a town where infected never show up. It's such a wide open space. There's just a single fence that defends the area. The noise from one clicker or zombie dying does not attract any other clickers. You don't need these amazing action sequences because it's a perfect world in the TV series almost. Oh, and you don't get to see the bloater, which all three of them encounter in the video game. So you don't have this amazing sequence where the three of them have to fend off these zombies and the bloater, which is the first and most important encounter against the bloater because that's the first time you learn how to actually take on one, how to challenge it. The fact that its weakness is fire, you have to set it on fire the first chance you get because the fire damage remains on it and allows it to get damaged over time, and so you don't have this whole thing in the TV series, which really makes me question why they made the TV series if they are not really going to follow the source material and saying they would. I think it's fair enough to say that yeah, and also they don't have this, right? Uh, there's nothing to do with it. Wait, let's see. He's doing it wear a shirt like that. I guess not. Look what I found. It's my battery. Oh, geez. Okay, plan B, what I thinking. Wait, hang on. Do we see the note? I want to know if they find the note somewhere here. There we go. That's the note. So it's perfect. I got a frame of it. So he said, this is a note from Frank to Bill. I doubt you'd ever find this note because you were too scared to ever make it out of this part of the town. but if for some reason you did, I want you to know I hated your guts. I grew tired of the shitty town and of your set in your ways attitude. I wanted more from life than this, and you could never get that. And that stupid battery you kept moaning about, I got it, but I guess you were right. Trying to leave this town would kill me. Still better than spending another day with you. So in the video game, Frank is actually tired of Bill. At this point, he's just tired and he's just fed up, and it's a true lover's quarrel, and it's an ugly one. And Frank has left Bill, and Frank has died as a result of exposing himself to the environments and got killed by a bunch of zombies. In the TV series, however, Frank lives a near perfect life, and dies by committing suicide together with Bill. So Bill and Frank actually take their own lives. They die off in a bedroom. And when Joel and Ellie show up to the house, there's actually a note that says, "Hey Joel, these keys are for you. You can take whatever stuff you want. I left the bedroom window open so it doesn't smell. Me and Frank are dead inside there, so don't come inside." And stuff like that. So that happens in the TV series. So majority of this episode 3 was a romance between Bill and Frank. The flashback between Bill and Frank, cutting down nearly like an hour of beautiful action sequences, exploring, venturing, taking on this upside down shooting challenge, surviving Bill's traps, taking on the Big Mama the first time she shows up. If you guys have watched PewDiePie, then you guys know that the Bloater is the Big Mama. And then, all these traps and tropes and all of these things that they go through, the puzzle solving, the venturing, the challenges. I get it, you want to cut down a bunch of things, but you literally cut down the best part of the video game and put in the worst part of the whatever love story that you want to tell. Listen, whether these people are gay or they're straight, no one cares about their love story because this is The Last of Us. This is not a story about Bill and Frank's romance. I get it, you want to show us a little bit of flashback about them. Give it a 5-minute flashback. It's good enough. You don't need to give us like a 40-minute of an episode just to show Bill and Frank making love to each other, having meals together, pouring wine, having this perfect world that they're living in, which doesn't make sense because in reality, Frank hates Bill, leaves Bill, dies alone. Bill helps Joel and Ellie make it to the place only to realize that this is where Frank died, and gives Joel and Ellie his car and tells them to carry on, and he has to just continue surviving because that's what he does. He's a survivor. And it's what it says in the TV series, except he kills himself in the TV series. He kept saying it a few times, saying he's a survivor, he's a survivor. And then when he finally meets Frank, he says, "I've never been afraid, but for the first time in my life, I'm afraid because I've met you and fallen in love, blah blah." Like I get it, okay. For those of us who have fallen in love, it's yes, we get it. Okay, we totally get it. But that's not the story here, is it? The story here is a survival horror story. It's an action survival horror story, which is The Last of Us. And you take away all those elements to give what a gay drama, which I don't know who cared about, but honestly, I felt that all these great actors, like even the guys who acted with Bill and Frank, were super. Murray Bartlett, Nick Offerman, super. They were really good. Just seeing them on screen together, but having them like their story and what would have been an hour of look at how many things I showed you in the last hour of just scrolling through this gameplay, right? It is insane the amount of details that I've shown you. And not even half of it is in the TV series. Not even 20% of it is in the TV series. 10%? Yes, maybe. 10% was in the TV series. So 90% of it is different. It's a story of, as I said, Bill and Frank's gay love story, which is whatever. Like, as I said before, you can be whatever, you can have your story and all that. That's great. And they should have done it. I think they should have still had that beautiful story because it was a good story on its own. But for 10 minutes, just give me 10 minutes of it. Just show them living together, show them growing crops together, showing them dying and or whatever. But don't deviate from the fact that Bill is a completely different character in the video game where he survives because that's what he does. He's a survivor. And Frank goes and dies by himself because they had a quarrel. They hated each other towards the end, and that's the truth. Certain relationships in Apocalypse can get salty. It's very realistic. Two people may not have a perfect relationship. Whether you're straight or you're gay, it doesn't matter. Not everything works out all the time. Just learn to understand that. And That's what the video game tried to show, which the TV series diverted from. And the action sequences, like there's what, like 4 or 5 action sequences in the last hour that I was scrolling. We had none of it in the TV series. I swear, none. There wasn't a single zombie that they fought in the TV series for episode 3. And I'm beginning to realize that I may have been right to reserve my judgment on this TV series. After the first episode, I'd say I probably give it a 4 or 5. I think after the second and third, I'm going to stop at a 3 and I'm going to rate it and I'm going to leave it there until I see episode um, 4 and 5. Sorry, yeah. After episode 2 and 3, I'm going to wait until I see episode 4 and 5, and then we'll see how it goes. But as I said, episode 1 for me, um, it was good. Maybe it's a 6 or a 5. Nothing special, really, nothing special. Episode 2, the clicker scene was really good, but the rest of the episode, nothing special. Tess dying, yes, we get it. Tess died, yes, that happened in the video game too. And it was, I would say they worked a little bit better in the TV series to show how Tess died in the TV series and how she kills herself. She goes out with a bang. That's fantastic. It's gorgeous. But the exploration, the world building, the challenges that that Joel and Ellie face, that they need to undertake to build a relationship, to build a dynamic, to show you what The Last of Us is all about, is not there. It's just not there. And now they do the same thing. They stretch whatever happened in episode 2, knowing that they only have to show you 10 minutes of zombies and you're satisfied. They do the same thing in episode 3, except there's no zombies. It's just a full-on gay TV series in episode 3. It's literally a story of these two guys. Look at this. Okay, let's say I'll just look at the photos, right, of what they've posted of episode 3. Let me not click in. Let me just zoom in a little bit, right? Okay, this is two of them walking. Ellie and Joel walking simulator. This is Bill and Frank, 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 Bill and Frank. There's one scene where Tess and um, Joel visit Bill and Frank. So they could have just shown this in like a 1 minute clip of all of them sitting down together. It doesn't make sense though. In a perfect utopia, they're able to do this. At least do it indoors. It would make some sense. But being able to just be so freely able to have this tea party outdoors and showing that the infected will never make it to the its way to the ranch, it really didn't make sense because you do see infected walking over there from time to time. So if one infected walks and triggers a trap, more will come. And that's the idea in the video game. The reason this place is so infested, why they have to fight their way through the infected, is because the traps also make sure the traps keep the infected away, but they also make sure more infected keep getting triggered, keep hearing the explosions and bullets and gunfire and all of that, and they keep showing up, to continue to try to break down the place because they are all attracted to this area. And you show this whole episode 2 sequence of how, oh, there's this network that the infected use, and it's a very dangerous network, and that's the reason why they're controlling entire areas and towns. And literally, like the only safe place where Joel is a bunkered up Fedra base. But all of a sudden, Bill and Frank can live perfectly in harmony in an open garden with just an open fence. It doesn't even make sense. It's not logical. It doesn't take any. There's no intelligence in it. There's no ingenuity. There's none of that, right? So again, these two are the same two sequences from above here, so there's no difference. There's one scene where Ali sees like a an infected in an underground kind of hideout in the place where Joel goes to scavenge for some weapons. It's just a very short scene where she just goes down a hatch. Joel completely doesn't pay attention to her. Whatever, she goes down the hatch. She just stabs at an infected. She's just exploring and playing with it with her knife to sort of just understand what they are. And as a kid, I think it makes sense. You see something like a little bird or an insect, you want to poke at it and look what it is. Some kids are more sadistic than others, which is kind of creepy. But I would say that this was very, very creepy. It shows that Ellie might have some kind of a sadistic nature inside of her. And yeah, it's fine. It's whatever. It's character building, it's development. I think this was a decent scene to show if that's what they intended, to show that Ellie is pretty messed up in her head. She's willing to do certain things, go to certain lengths. She's just toying around with the infected. She really wants to understand them because maybe she feels she's connected to them somehow in a sense where she's infected, but she's immune. So she's sort of the, how can you put it, the prophetic child, right? She's like the key, the answer to these things. So her having this dynamic to explore what it is, it totally makes sense. These two are also part of the walking simulator, which is like the first 5 to 10 minutes of the episode. It's actually less. It's 5 minutes, I think. 5 minutes or so. As you can see, the rest is Bill and Frank, Bill and Frank, Bill and Frank, Bill and Frank, all the way up to here. Bill and Frank, and it's done. That's it. That's pretty much the episode. So, as I said, unlike the video game, Bill never meets Joel, never meets Ellie. Frank doesn't kill himself. They both live in perfect harmony and they commit suicide. It's the worst episode, not just in The Last of Us, but I think in TV series adaptations. Um, yeah, it probably is. I don't know. There may be a lot more worse TV series out there, but thanks to me, I mean, thank God, I didn't end up watching all the worst TV series in the world. So yeah, that's my biggest, I would say, problem with the third episode. If you ask me, the second episode is pretty good too, but the first episode might just be the best one so far. The second episode really threw in a very beautiful clip at the start of it. It was an extra bit of lore to show this professor of mycology, Ratna, who is called to investigate on the sudden appearance of this cordyceps fungus inside a patient's body. And she's called by military. She's called out from a diner. She goes to check on it. There's a beautiful clip of it. I'm sure you can find it online on YouTube or whatever. There's a clip of where she is called to investigate, and she freaks out and she asks the military, calls her there like, "What's happening? Why did you call me here?" So all this happens pre-apocalypse. In a sequence before the apocalypse takes place. And when the military asks her, "This is what's happening," uh, Ibu Ratna, because Ibu means like miss or missus in Indonesia, and Pak means Mister. For those of you who don't know, so Mister and Miss is like Ibu, and it's like Pak and Miss. Sorry, Mister and Miss or Mister and Mrs. is like Pak and Bu or Ibu, which is how they call their Mr. and Mrs. So they call her Ibu Ratna and they say, "Ibu Ratna, what can we do about this? Do you have any idea?" She just says, bomb the whole city, bomb all of us in it. This is my advice to you as a professor who has been studying these fungus for my entire life. As a mycology professor, my suggestion to you is to kill everything and burn everything around us. And so it all makes sense in in the way they have twisted the lore in this. They have sort of given it a lot more meat, I would say. Where Indonesia does have the biggest flour mill in the world, so having the perfect circumstances for where the infection could start or the fungus could develop makes a lot of sense. Also, Americans eat a lot of bread, so the infection to all of a sudden spread all the way there through the flour that arrived from Indonesia would make sense. Indonesia is also located along the equator beside Malaysia. So the high temperatures would allow the fungus to adapt quickly compared to the colder countries. Because remember, in the first episode, the professor was talking about how higher temperatures would cause the fungus to eventually want to evolve. And it makes sense it starts off in Indonesia or Malaysia because the temperatures there are a lot higher. They're along the equator. Indonesia actually has a lot more volcanoes, and because they have the largest flour mill, the fungus there will be the first to evolve, and that's the first sequence, and it takes place and that's how the apocalypse starts. So I think that twist in the lore, that backstory is fantastic. Episode 2 was brilliant. The opening was great. The rest of the episode, however, was slow until they just showed the sequence where the infected shows up. And then Joel and Ellie and Tess have to fight their way through it. Again, I think it's just two clickers, nothing extraordinary, not like the video game. So I don't really know why they would do that. Like in the video game, you're killing like 4 or 5 clickers, but in the TV series, just two, and it's super difficult, and they want to show that. And yeah, they cut off a lot of beautiful scenes, a lot of amazing parts of it. And then they give us episode 3, which was absolute shit. It was the worst of the 3 episodes, which doesn't even make sense. Not part of the lore. It's not Bill's real story. It's not what he's supposed to be or what he's supposed to go through. And so really strange decision making. But it makes sense as to why Marlene actually has 3 episodes in her contract. Wait, sorry, not Marlene. Tess, right? Wait, didn't Tess have 5 episodes in her contract before this? I don't know. I think they updated it, but now it shows 3 episodes instead of 5. I'm not sure if she's still going to be there for another 2 more episodes of flashbacks, but it looks like they needed her in this third episode just to give the flashback story of her and Joel meeting up with Bill and Frank. So yeah, anyway, that's about it for this review so far, and I would say that The video game gameplay and cutscenes are just a lot better. Probably what I'm gonna do is just rewatch PewDiePie's entire gameplay, or maybe I don't know, it's a bunch of other people who played it. Saw Spy, uh, what is this? Radbrad. No, there's one no commentary gameplay made by someone. All these gameplays are just so much better because it turns out the first game still remains to be the best part of what is The Last of Us. And I'm giving you this whole point and explanation with the logic. I'm not saying that the TV series can't be better. As I gave you examples, it can be, and it has been in certain moments where it gives you more backstory and more lore, but only when it's really needed without cutting away from the story of the video game. Like all of a sudden, you change the character of Bill into this guy who lives in this town with his gay buddy for 10 years. Great, but we don't need an episode out of that. You know, you can just give us a note like what happens in the video game. Why didn't the video game give us an episode out of that? Because it's not interactive. The whole point of a video game is that it's interactive. You're involved in it. In some video games, in flashbacks or backstories, you're actually playing one of the characters. In the TV series, what do you expect to play as? Because it's not the zombie apocalypse game. The moment it becomes a story of romance between two guys, it's not. You're not involved in it in any way. You don't partake in it in any way. You don't expect to be a part of it in the sense where it's enjoyable or it's fun or you're actually using tropes of the zombie killing and whatever. Like if they actually showed Bill and Frank's backstory and they actually put them in the world where the zombies are actually trying to wear down their bunker and they show them defending themselves, fighting off a bunch of bad guys, Bill and Tess showing up, Joel and Tess showing up as well to help them. If they showed all of these things, it would have been perfect. I think they would have really buffed the story up and not changing the fact that towards the end of the story, Bill and Frank's relationship was not perfect. They actually had a lot of struggle. Frank goes and kills himself, and Bill just lives on because he's a survivor, right? But they don't do that. They completely change the story. They give them some kind of a perfect relationship, and then they don't allow Joel to have this also to build his relationship with Ellie because they don't show them solving things and figuring things out together. They don't show them taking on the Big Mama. They don't show this upside down fight sequence which happens. Um, they don't show that how deadly Bill's traps are. They don't show them disarming it. They don't show them making their way through this townscape. This beautiful, gorgeous town, by the way, which in the TV series, it's just like an open town. It literally looks like this. This is what the this is actually a trailer. No, I don't need the trailer. It actually looks like some open town where there's just like a house. Yeah, so it looks like this. It's like a collection of houses in like this little neighborhood. How different is this from this, right? Like this is really run down and it's realistic. There's no way one guy is able to paint these many houses, maintain their bricks, the roofing, the tiling, the fence work, the lawn. How do you maintain this? I get it, you're two guys. They do show some places being outgrown by plants, but it's not just gonna have creepers on it. The whole thing is gonna be ruined. The paint will be ruined. The roofs will be broken. Where are you gonna get roof tiles? Like, let's say you go to a local store, right? Let's say you go to a hardware store. You might find like, wait, what, 100, 1,000 roof tiles? That might be enough to fix like what, one house, two houses? What about the rest of it, right? And we're talking like more than 10 years. Like Bill has been living here for at least 10 years. Frank joins him, they live for another 10 years, which is 20 years since the apocalypse started, right? There's no way it looks like this. There's no way it looks this perfect. If anything, it will look like what it looks over here in the video game. This is a real representation of what it should look like. And also these narrow pathways, these short, small corridors, all this is important because it shows you that these are perfect for bunkering up, for locking things down to create like little spaces where you get to craft your things. The elements that are in the video game that's so well done is just unable to be replicated in the TV series. And it really feels like a budget issue, a directing issue, a decision making issue. And yeah, like look at this. Look at the stones here getting overgrown, right? How would how would Bill be able to manage all of that? What, you're gonna have sulfuric acid to clean up like 200 meters of rock? It doesn't even make sense. And yes, why I'm referencing sulfuric acid is because it's somewhere there in the TV series they show him having like canisters of it. But yeah, I guess it's for melting bodies or whatever to melt the dead that shows up in his lawn. But yeah, whatever. It is what it is. I would say at this point, it's still not worth watching the TV series if you have not started. You'd rather go and watch the game. But if you're really curious and you really want to know how bad it is, I suggest why not try your luck, see if you can survive the third episode. Again, if you ask me, as a story by itself, I think it is good. If it was a show about Bill and Frank, I think it would have been fine. But this is a show called The Last of Us, and the main characters are actually Joel and Ellie, and everyone else is side characters. So this is a filler episode in the third episode of the first season of HBO's biggest TV series this year. Like, if you compare something like Naruto Shippuden, like Naruto has like what 1,000 over episodes. They only start fillers after like what 20, 30 episodes or something. They do have flashback sequences. They do have a lot of side characters, but this is like the third episode of the first season. They don't even show you the core story before they deviate, before they add in things. They don't even show you this bit, right? I could take any frame from this video game and tell you that none of this is in the TV series. There's only that one sequence where Ellie is, well, I actually managed to land perfectly. Ellie is actually looking at this, what do you call this, game console, arcade console, and the rest of the environment is not the same, the world is not the same. They could have at least tried to create a town that looks like this, you know, with the broken down cars, the buildings, close up, narrow streets, little township. They didn't even bother. There wasn't even an attempt to say that, okay, it wasn't close, but there was an attempt. It wasn't even an attempt. No one tried to even make it like this. Um, so yeah, uh, really not only disappointed, but I think at this point I shouldn't be disappointed because why should I expect any better from HBO, right? Why should I have thought that they could have done it? Why even believe that HBO would have done the right thing, trying to make a real life adaptation of the video game? Yeah, anyway, it is what it is. You don't get to see this kids' room being shown or any of these sequences, getting the bow and arrow and trying to test it out, killing infected with bow and arrows. As I said, there's no infected in that episode, so a long, long time is a long, long way away from hitting the mark. So yeah, that's it from me, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. I hope. I'm not sure if I'm going to continue watching this, but I'll try to get back to you after another two episodes and see how it goes. If the episode 4 and 5 are pretty good, well, I might be excited, but looks like we'll have to judge it one step at a time because, um, yeah, these writers, what Neil Druckmann has, I don't know what he's up to because he wrote the original game, but uh, the TV series seems to be a totally different, what do you call this, direction. All right, take care, guys.